from Quito, Ecuador. My name is Sweeney Gray, and this is from the South. The evening news brief from Tell Us Your English. We start this new edition right now. The Colombian police have suspended 4 officers after they admitted that last Thursday they fired at campesinos in Tumaco, killing at least 8 of them. In the same area on Sunday, the police fired at a group of human rights activists and journalists who had gone to investigate last Thursday's massacre. There were no reports of casualties in that shooting. The group that came under fire included representatives of the United Nations and the regional government. Following these reports, the APA Press Twitter account tweeted saying that there had been new attacks by the Colombian ESMAD in Tumaco, Colombia, a few hours ago. APA Press also published this following video. Let's have a look.
Se le fueron encima.
Uy, hijo de pucha, me estamos dando. Ya la han tirado allá.
Ahí viene otra. Ahí viene otra. Sí, sí. ¡Ay, está fuerte ese hijo de puta!
No corra tanto porque se baja la zona.
Claro.
No corra, no corra. No corra. Una cara y oh, que vinieron, qué puta.
Our correspondent Lorena Hoyos is in Tumaco near the Ecuadorian border. She has more details.
Compañeros, buenos días. Una pregunta clara se hacen en este momento.
At the moment, several human rights organizations and the campesinos of Tumaco are wondering what are the anti-narcotics police hiding here in the zone of Tantil? Why didn't they let the investigative mission enter the zone, even though it included United Nations representatives? Some of the organization's leaders that were part of this mission told us that they were going over there to verify the information given by the communities, where supposedly it was pointed out that in that zone was the body of a campesino that they haven't been able to remove from the area. Let's remember that officially there were 6 fatal victims, 6 campesinos that were murdered last Thursday by the anti-narcotics police, but the residents say there could be more than 10 victims. So, those are the questions that are being asked right now, besides the fear and the shock that the campesinos who survived the first attack are suffering. They live here in the zone and they have to move about among these police. They wonder why the police haven't left the region. Today, the authorities announced that 4 police officers were suspended, allegedly linked to the shootings last week. However, several organizations are clear that there needs to be a thorough debate to understand what caused this conflict that we are experiencing.
So that was Lorena Hoyos reporting from Tumaco. Venezuela has successfully launched its third telecommunications satellite from China. The Antonio José de Sucre satellite lifted off just after midday local time from the Jiuquan Launch Center in the northwestern Chinese province of Gansu and went into orbit shortly after that without any problems. The Venezuelan government says the new satellite will provide a better tool for monitoring agriculture, health, energy, food security, and natural resource management.
Vamos a seguir en esta alianza estratégica para la independencia tecnológica con China.
And we are going to keep going with this strategic alliance for independence with China, Russia, and India, increasing the technological independence of our country, come rain or storm. Venezuela is working to realize its great potential. Look at the huge development China has achieved in the last 30 to 50 years. Our country is also going to reach tremendous development with perseverance, organization, discipline, love, knowledge, education, science and technology. That's our way. That's where we are heading. The road of development, thinking big and acting big to have a great country.
Our correspondent in China, Isiora Diaz, was watching the launch from the Jiuquan province, and she sends this report.
We are at the Jiuquan Launch Center in the north of China, where just a few hours ago the third satellite from Venezuela was launched. The Sucre, a remote perception satellite, which represents technological advances compared with the second satellite, the Miranda. That was also a remote perception satellite designed to have a useful life of 5 years, but is still providing data to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. This time, the Sucre has gone into an orbit that is synchronized with that of the Sun, at a distance of around 640 kilometers from Earth, and it will provide data that will help to supervise and develop plans for the environment, as well as to plan the use of natural resources and national security. As I said, it has better and more advanced technology than the Miranda satellite. For example, a high-definition camera, which will help with agricultural issues and the supervision of water reserves, because it is a geothermal camera. What is also important to highlight at this time is the possibility that this PRSS-2 project has brought in, allowing Venezuelan technicians and specialists to be able to join the Chinese technicians and specialists in practically all stages of the project, from phase B to phase E, which was the one of the launch. This has made possible the exchange of knowledge and has also made it possible for Venezuela to take the path towards its own technological independence. We will be back with more information later. Back to the studio now.
That was Ms. Diaz in China. Venezuela is getting ready for regional elections on October 15th. They would be the 22nd set of elections since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution. The race for the governorship of Banaras is one of the most symbolic of the 23 state elections, where Argenis Chavez, the brother of former leader Hugo Chavez, will be competing for votes against the opposition candidate, Freddy Superliano.
We are in the middle of an electoral campaign. The opposition have not even made an opening appearance, and we are getting ready to round up the campaign. They have lost the popular support completely because the great majority of people in Barinas and the people of Venezuela want peace, and that is not what the opposition in Barinas and Venezuela is offering.
Let's take a closer look at how the election preparations are going.
Technicians from Venezuela's Electoral Council, along with the political parties, have been checking the voting technology that will be used on October the 15th, when the government and opposition compete for 23 state governorships. Last week, they finished their 8th audit. The systems for sending the data and adding up the totals are all ready, along with the software for the voting machines and all the related systems. All this is to guarantee the security of the vote and the transparency of Venezuela's democracy. 20 international specialists are also taking part.
There
are 16 political parties standing, and each of them has the right, at each voting center throughout the country, to one main observer and 2 substitutes. On voting day, in addition to each voter casting their vote electronically, they also put a physical ballot paper in the ballot box, and 34% of these are audited.
More than 18 million people are eligible to vote on October the 15th. It will be the 22nd election since the beginning of the Bolivarian Revolution 19 years ago.
We had regional elections in 2002, but the political situation was different then. As the whole world knows, we have had several months of violence and difficult times. Then we had the election of the Constituent Assembly, and now, a few months later, the regional elections. It's happening very quickly, and there's been uncertainty about how voters will respond, because some of these parties were incitating hatred and calling on people to kill people and burn warehouses and hospitals. But for us, as an institution, we are always ready for elections.
The Venezuelan opposition has decided to take part in these regional elections. It earlier called for abstention, even insurrection, and said it didn't recognize the existing institutions, including the National Electoral Council, the same body that declared the opposition had won the parliamentary elections in 2015.
More news in a minute. Stay with us. The world's attention may have turned away from the Caribbean islands, devastated by last month's twin hurricanes, but the islands are still struggling to return to even a semblance of normalcy. Some 90% of Dominica's buildings and infrastructure were damaged or were destroyed or badly damaged when Hurricane Maria swept across the island. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit had welcomed an emergency meeting of the Parliament that discussed extending the state of emergency until the end of the year. The government believes that this will help speed up the recovery efforts. Indigenous and campesino communities in northern Guatemala are struggling after their homes and crops were destroyed when the Chusoy River overflowed more than 2 days later. Many haven't received any aid. We have more in this report.
The homes of many Guatemalan campesino families were flooded in Ixsan, Quiché, and the north of Verapaz. Swollen by the tropical depression as it passed, the river Chixoy burst its banks.
When I arrived at 3 a.m, these houses had about 10 centimeters of water. Now the water's gone up another meter. It's just staying there and rising very slowly.
Some families had to abandon everything they had, as local people rescued them before the rushing waters swept them away. Orbelina was one of them.
We had no time to take anything. I couldn't even close the door. I grabbed a bit of corn, but nothing else. Now I have nowhere to live. I'm stuck in that shack there.
Other peasant families are also worried because the floodwaters have destroyed their corn and other basic crops.
Most people hadn't harvested their corn. So now we have no corn and no food for our children. So we need the government to send something because we have nothing.
2 days after the floods came, the victims have received no help from the government. They rely only on their community's own organization, as the local human rights representative points out.
Here, we can't invent solutions. We know that it's the community itself, through the COCODES organization, the indigenous major, the youth organizations, and the women, who are the first to step in and help.
The affected families are convinced that the hydroelectric company on this river contributed to the floods because they regularly open the floodgates when the dam is in danger of overflowing.
Hurricane Nate was downgraded to a tropical depression on Sunday as it continues its course through the United States. The storm was categorized as a Category 1 hurricane, making landfall in Mississippi and Louisiana. Nate cut electricity to over 67,000 homes in the Gulf states after it had devastated Central America. At least 28 people were killed by the storm in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Honduras. Hundreds others were affected by flooding and mudslides. Aliana Duarte has been covering the storm for us from Louisiana, and she sent this report.
Nate, the first hurricane to make landfall in Mississippi since Katrina in 2005, quickly lost its strength Sunday. It was a Category 1 hurricane when it came outside Biloxi early Sunday. Its second landfall after initially hitting southeastern Louisiana, where we are right now. On Saturday evening, Tropical Storm Nate weakened into a tropical depression Monday, but remnants from the storm are impacting the New York area. Georgia Power reported that about 6,000 customers lost electricity. Most, though, had regained power by Monday morning. Much of the rainfall centered on areas south of Atlanta, where 5 inches of rain fell on Anna Ruby Falls, Brasstown, and Union. Forecasters said the remainder of Nate continued toward the northeast and move off the New England coast by Monday night.
Thank you so much, Alianda. Thousands of people were affected in Mexico City by the earthquake on September 19th. Some say the government has forgotten all about them. Our correspondent, Pablo Perez Garcia, has more in this report.
Juana must be very careful when walking her whole line street. One day after the earthquake, the government started working on the sewers only to leave them open, creating yet another risk for the neighborhood.
We can't get past. We don't have water. They left the drains open and we're exposed to contaminated water.
The people of Tláhuac has had to see for themselves since the quake. The government workers supposed to take care of damaged constructions also left soon.
They just took a glimpse at the situation and gave us a few recommendations. But they didn't provide the materials or tell us what to do exactly. So the neighbors found these wooden poles and put them there by themselves.
On her own, Silvia cares for her damaged home, deemed inhabitable by the September 19th earthquake. Most of her belongings are still in there, out of their reach.
From that day on, unfortunately, we haven't heard from the authorities, not even a policeman to help us face the vandalism that we are suffering from.
Jose Luis can't let go of his kids while walking them down the street. He considers the huge cracks caused by the quake to be too big a risk.
Nothing. There is nothing. Definitely there is nothing that they have said to us. No report from the government or anything. Right now we know nothing.
Added to all their grievances, the citizens of Villa Centroamericana has been said by the Tláhuac government that running water won't be available for 2 more months, forcing them to live in precarious conditions. Pablo Perez Garcia, Telesur, Mexico City.
In Bolivia, activists and tourists have joined the Bolivarian president, Evo Morales, in an anti-imperialist march to the small Bolivarian town of La Jingura in Santa Cruz to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Ernesto Che Guevara's death. That is where the socialist revolutionary was executed by Bolivarian soldiers, supported by the CIA 50 years ago today. Che was 39 at the time. Following his death, he became an international symbol for revolution and left-wing ideals. Our correspondent, Mercedes Fernandez, is in Valle Grande for the commemorations and has more in this report.
Today is October the 9th, and we are in the town of Valle Grande in the east of Bolivia. The whole country is represented here by delegations on this very special day. We can hear behind us the sound of people chanting the name of Bolivia's president. There are very important figures attending the event. They have arrived from the whole continent and are coming from Cuba, from Peru, from Chile, from Argentina, and several other countries. Che Guevara's 4 children are here right now, as well as his brother, and the Cuban vice president, who has just delivered a speech in which he remarked on Che Guevara's role in leading and inspiring a struggle that many Latin Americans are now trying to revive. This is what we can report from the celebratory event of the 50th anniversary of Che Guevara.
And we move from a story in Bolivia to Cuba, because in Cuba, thousands attended a ceremony to recognize the 50th anniversary of Che Guevara's death. At the Ernesto Guevara Sculptural Complex in Santa Clara, family and friends of Guevara, including Cuban President Raul Castro, were in attendance. Castro laid a white rose at Che's tomb. Reporting from the ceremony is Telesio's Laura Prada.
Hello, yes, indeed. Several activities were held this weekend in Cuba to remember the life of Ernesto Guevara. For instance, workers called to celebrate voluntary works, especially in this time where the island is still recovering from the impact of Hurricane Irma. The Sports Institute called for a simultaneous chess match, and the students also held different activities. But today, pioneers who started their first grade are receiving their blue scarves, and they are making their promise to be just like Che. This 8th of October was held in the province of Santa Clara, one of the provinces where was fought one of the last battles before the triumph of the revolution, and where 60,000 people were present. And the first vice president of the island, Miguel Díaz-Canel, stated the fact that Cubans have kept alive the legacy of Che Guevara. And also he recalled on the fact that the region is under threats, big threats, but we must stay together. This is all I have for now. I get back to you.
That was Laura Prada reporting from Cuba. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. On Sunday, Turkey's embassy in Washington confirmed that it has suspended all non-immigrant visa services at Turkish diplomatic facilities in the United States. The decision to suspend its visa services to the U.S. came hours after the United States consulate in Turkey reduced its visa services after one of its consulate employees was arrested last week on terror charges. The move, with minor exceptions, blocks U.S. citizens from entering Turkey and vice versa. Our correspondent in Washington, Jorge Gestoto, has more.
Thank you very much. It was surprising, the new position of President Trump regarding immigration. Late on Sunday, he was sending to the Congress his new vision of what definitely immigration reform should be about. And now he's trying to connect, to approve the DACA situation, the immigrants that came like kids to the U.S. in order to regularize their position, and now he's requesting three things: an overhauling regarding green cards system, also a crackdown on unaccompanied kids going through the border, and again, the building of the wall. And immediately it got the whole reaction from Democrats and Republicans at the Congress that see that now immigration reform looks very, very, very complicated. It was the understanding of the leaders of the Democratic Party. We're talking about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer that met a couple of weeks ago with President Trump at the White House in a dinner, that the understanding was that the building of the wall was not connected to an immigration reform. Now he's going back to his initial position, and that complicates the whole thing. So now again, new discussions, new negotiations, and we have to wait and see how the situation, the future of the DACA kids, we're talking about 800,000 immigrants, could be resolved. Now we go back to you again.
So that was our Washington correspondent, Jorge Gesuto. Last week, Spain's Constitutional Court banned a planned Catalonian parliamentary session, which was due Monday, where the Catalonian referendum results were expected to be discussed. Now, Catalonia's president, Charles Puigdemont, is expected to address the regional parliament on Tuesday, where it's also possible that he will declare independence. The government of neighboring France has said that it will not recognize Catalonia if it declares independence from Spain, and such a move will mean expulsion from the European Union. Our correspondent, Joan Ortiz, is in Barcelona, and he has the details.
The latest news here in Barcelona that's reached us from the European Union is that the Commissioner for Human Rights has requested an investigation into the police action on Sunday the 1st of October against those who went to vote. Those pictures, of course, which were seen around the world and caused so much controversy. The other news right now is the pro-unity demonstration that filled the streets of Barcelona yesterday. 350,000 people, according to the local police. Today, the national police spoke of 400,000, and the organizers claimed it was over 1 million. There was a fascist contingent there, and although fortunately it didn't become major news, there were reports of aggression against some journalists, especially from the Catalan media, both physical and verbal aggression, as well as against other people opposed to the ideas of that demonstration. But as I say, that was a small part of the demonstration, which mostly went off peacefully. We are now entering a week that will be crucial for the movement towards independence, because in 24 hours' time, the regional president, Carles Puigdemont, could declare independence. At 6 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, he will appear before the Catalan parliament to explain how the results of the referendum on independence will be applied. We don't know for certain if he will declare independence or not. If he does, it will be the beginning of a very intense week, which includes, on the 12th of October, the Day of Spanish Heritage, when every year the pro-union forces usually take to the streets. There is one word which we're hearing more of now: mediation. There is a lobby of elders, of former diplomats and retired officials, like former UN Secretary Generals Ban Ki-moon and Kofi Annan, or the former US President Jimmy Carter, or Desmond Tutu, people with a high international media profile. The Catalan government has been in touch with them, and they have declared that a negotiated solution is needed to the current conflict. Carles Puigdemont and the whole independence movement behind him believe that is needed, but that first there has to be respect for Catalonia's self-determination. Only then, they say, can there be a dialogue on equal terms between Catalonia and Spain. That
was Joan Ortiz reporting from Barcelona. We've come to the end of this evening's news brief. Remember, for details on these and other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. To Tell Us Your English, I am Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.